All right, we are going to talk about the skeletal system. So now we are going to look at, last time we looked at all the muscles and how they were connected and how they moved your bones. Now we're going to actually look at the bones. So objective, to learn the structure and function of the skeletal system. So why do we have it? So here is going to be your bell work tomorrow, so make sure you try to understand the answer to that. So bone. Bone is a type of connective tissue that makes up the endoskeleton of vertebrates. The endoskeleton meaning it's inside of the body. It's composed of 4 types of cells. We have the osteoclasts, they destroy bone. The osteoblasts, they build. The osteocytes, they hold bone together. And the lining cells, this is the protection of the bone. So the osteoclasts, sometimes we grow too much bone, and so we need to have it destroyed. And these osteoclasts get rid of excess bone for us. The osteoblasts, think of B as in build. The osteoblasts, they build our bones. So when we break our bone or something like that happens, there's a crack, these osteoblasts go in and repair the lining. We have osteocytes. These are this fibrous type of cells that help hold all of the cells in a bone together to make them hard. And then the lining cells. This is the protection or the outer layer of the bone. So it's almost like a membrane-esque type thing, and it helps keep the bone intact, and it's really hard. So the function of the skeletal system. This provides shape and support to your body. And in providing shape and support, it helps protect all those internal organs that you have in your body. They're super important, and they need to be protected, because think of all the times you fall, think of all the times that things happen. All of those vital organs in your middle section or in your brain or in your chest all need to be protected. They help you move. Okay, so remember we talked about muscles, so it's a combination of your muscles and your skeleton that allow you to move. They also manufacture or make blood cells in the bone marrow. That's the hollow part in your bones, and so they help make your blood cells. They also provide storage of calcium and phosphorus, which are super important for different functions within your body. So bone structure. So we have the periosteum. This membrane that covers and protects contains blood vessels and nerves, and that's at the very outer layer of a bone. And you'll notice there are little veins and stuff shown here. That is the periosteum. There's the compact bone or the hard bone, and this provides structure to the bones. The compact bone or hard bone, which provides structure to the bones, is this center part right here. Okay, it tends to be very hard and compact. They're very close. The cells are very close together in that area. The cancellous bone, this is the porous bone or spongy bone. I like to call it spongy bone because it contains the blood vessels and the marrow. So the spongy bone is all this stuff at the ends, and they call it spongy because it's porous. It has lots of different holes in it, and this is where your bone marrow lives. Okay, this is where some of your bone marrow is going to start to live. And remember, the marrow is soft, jelly-like center of bones, and there are 2 types. There's yellow, which contain the fat cells, and there's red, and this is where your blood cells are made, the platelets, the red, and the white blood cells. So the porous nature of bones allows them to be strong yet flexible. So bones can bend a little before they break. So anytime that you've really hurt yourself or kind of gotten your arm or your finger or something caught in a funny place and it feels like it's about to break but then it doesn't, understand that they have a little bit of pores which allows them to bend a little bit before they actually break. And this is why when you take hard hits in sports, you don't always end up with a broken bone. Okay, and you can see this is a nice x-ray of, move that, of the bone itself, and you can see the ends. This would be the spongy bone. Look how porous they are. They have different holes in them. Okay, and those different holes, okay, are what allow the bone to be flexible. So your skeleton begins as cartilage when you're born, and it is eventually broken down and replaced with bone. babies have actually 300 bones, which is way more than we have when we get to adults, because we only have 206. And the reason why is because a lot of the 300 bones that the babies have are smaller portions of the bigger bone that will eventually form. And the smaller portions, okay, will have cartilage in between the barriers, and that cartilage will eventually turn into solid bone, which will join all the bones together, and you'll have less. A good example of this is in a baby's skull. This is why babies' heads are soft or have soft spots, because they have this cartilage in place of these bones, and their skull, which should just be one joined together piece, okay, we'll have several little tiny jointed pieces of bones all joined together with cartilage. And it's usually very good for childbirth, because this is what makes their head be able to fit out of their mom. So joints. So any place where there are two or more bones that come together, you're going to have a joint, okay? And cartilage is rubbery tissue that cushions bones. Here, let me move my face. Rubbery tissue that cushions the bones, and this is located at joints. So when two bones come together, they have to have cartilage in order to pad that bone so that there isn't an issue. There's also ligaments. Ligaments actually attach the bone to the bone. So if this is one bone, we're going to have a layer of cartilage on the bottom of it. This would be a second bone. And that way the cartilage allows so that they're not constantly rubbing against each other, which would be very painful. And the ligament actually would go from here to here, and it would hold them so that they can't go and bend or break off to the side. Your knee is a really good example of this. If you've ever heard of an ACL injury, an MCL injury, anything with the L on the end, those are ligaments that are there to help stabilize these joints. So there's several different types of joints. You have fixed joints. This allows little movement. In your skull, you actually have many different bones, and you can't really move them. Okay, right? I couldn't go like this and move the bones of my skull because they are in a fixed joint. They come together and they are basically fixed there. They can't move past each other. There's a pivot joint. This is when one bone rotates around another bone. A good example of this is your wrist, okay? So the fact that I can do, let's see here, the fact that I can do this, it rotates in its joint, or that I can turn my head from side to side, it rotates in its joint. It's called a pivot joint. The next is a ball and socket joint. This is the end of a bone, and one bone fits into a cup-like cavity of another bone. An example of this is your shoulder. Okay, your shoulder, notice you can't really raise it above shoulder length because without raising your actual shoulder itself, because there is this little cup. So this is your collarbone, and this is your arm bone. You'll notice that it is stuck in there so that it can rotate through it. Okay, move around in it. It's a ball inside of a socket, but it can't lift past a certain point. Okay, this is an example of your hip bone, which does the exact same thing. Then there's the hinge joints. This is back and forth movement. So your knee and your elbow joints are good examples of that. Okay, that just means that it allows it to open or close. And the same thing in your knee, it allows it to open or close. And remember, these hinge joints are the ones that are that have a lot of ligaments so that they stabilize them within their joints. And then there's the sliding joint. This is when one part of a bone slides past or over another. Bones of the wrist do this, and bones of the ankle do this. So the fact that you can turn your wrist or turn your ankle is definitely an example of, one more time, the pivot joint. But it is also an example of your sliding joints. So these are bones of the skeletal system, and this is going to take you a little while. But you have a diagram of this skeleton in the back of your notes. And what you need to do is on the left side of your skeleton, you are going to put these in order, okay, on where they go. So for example, the ocular orbit or eye socket, this is the first label on the left-hand side of my skeleton, so this would be the ocular orbit. The maxilla would be the second one. The mandible is this third one, and so on and so forth. So you can take it all the way down, all right, all the way down, all the way to the toes, okay? And the heel bone is going to be right here. It's still on the left side, so that very last one would be right here. Now for the right side of your skeleton, okay, for the right side of your skeleton, you will have all of these. So you'll want to pause and obviously fill in all of those. Okay, and I'll move my head. Okay, you'll want to fill in all of those in order again, going the exact same way that you did before. Cranium being this first one, frontal, forehead being the second one, nasal being your nose, okay, all the way down the right side of your skeleton. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. We will do some of this in class, so make sure you have those filled out. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.